they were getting spotted. We went
Yeah.
a little bit guerrilla, which was fun.
It's cool.
So why don't we get started? We'll say hello and welcome to all our attendees. Today we're talking about making art accessible. So I'm Emma here at ArtEvolve. I'm the communications manager. You may have noticed that I'm not Mackenzie or Annika, who are both sick today. So I'll be the host. Just a quick note to say, if anyone does want to ask questions, feel free to ask at any time during the webinar. You can pop them in the chat or in the Q&A section. And in the chat, you've got a drop down that says host and panelist is automatically defaulted to host and panelists. But if you change that to everyone, then everyone can join in the chat. So that's good to know. So with us today, we have Will Jarvis, who's the co-founder and CRO of Gertrude. We have Paul Becker, founder and CEO of ArtMoney, Julian Siegelman, founder and CEO at Parler, and with me as well from ArtEvolve is Stacey, our business from business development. So she's going to help us too. And we're talking about making art accessible. So we thought it was nice, it's always a nice time to support artists and galleries and museums. You're purchasing art or even merchandise. And we were thinking that the festive period is coming up and it's perhaps an even nicer time of year to support them. So in keeping with one of the themes of ArtEvolve, who do we know that's doing new and innovative things when it comes to buying, collecting and enjoying art? And that's how we thought of our three guests today. So Will, Paul and Julian, can you introduce yourselves? Will, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hi there. So yeah, I guess I was a founder of, or I am a founder of the Sunday Painter Gallery, which is now based in Vauxhall. That actually started whilst I was at university and grew from a very scrappy South London boozer in the back room to a kind of artist studios and gallery, and then now a commercial gallery based in Vauxhall. And we recently, the team from the Sunday Painter, because there's four directors, we've been going down this new path of creating something called Gertrude, which is an art subscription platform, so art rental. Yeah, that's enough, right? That's an explanation.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I just ramble if I have to like.
We'll get into the details
Cool.
In a moment. Julian, why don't you go next?
Cool. Hey, I'm Julian. So my mother's actually an artist. So I spent my whole life between the art and the business world. I started my career at McKinsey & Company, which is a large management consulting firm, and then left to join and scale an e-commerce company. But after 4 years of that, wanted to go back into the art world. And so I did my master's on the art market, and then I started Parler. Yeah.
Great. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, well, so I'm not originally from the art world. I had a publishing and events business and just fell into the art world in a professional sense. And then I followed that with a personal journey into the art world and founded ArtMoney in Australia about 6 years ago. And really it was what I saw was an industry that I felt was kind of broken and inefficient, and wondered if I could do something about that. And so ArtMoney is the vehicle for us to try and bring change to the industry. And it was one of those, if not now, when, if not me, who kind of moments, and decided to take the plunge and give it a crack. And here we are a couple of countries later, and yeah, trying to make change in the art world.
Great. Stacey, how about you? Because you're with ArtEvolve, but I think our attendees might not have seen you on the webinar before.
Yeah, so I started my careers in the auction house, Bonhams, and then I quickly moved into shipping with Momart and then Cadogan Tate, and I was in New York for many years, shipping over there with a specialism in art fairs. And then I joined ArtEvolve in 2018, and I'm still here. And I work, in business development, which is great because I'm working with all my old clients and some fantastic new ones, all the institutions and galleries and, private collectors. And it's a really cool spread. And we've been up to some really innovative things and, lots of webinars and learning new skills ourselves, and just it's been fun, hasn't it? For the past 18 months, weathering the storm of the pandemic. So we grew rather than shrinking, which was pretty cool. So yeah, and I'm joining the webinar today to support Emma because Mackenzie.
Thank you.
So yeah, but I generally do not take a front stage place, so I feel a little bit out of my depth, but I'm going to be here kind of asking some questions. And so if you're about and you want to just pop in the chat, say hi, where you're from, I'm going to be manning the chat and responding to your questions. So
great.
hi.
There's always lots going on at ArtEvolve, so it's nice that's still the case even during the pandemic.
Yeah, we do love an interaction, we love a chat, so say hi.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we kind of get into the details a little bit more. Will, you were keen to dive in and introduce us to your platform.
Yeah, I guess I was just going to talk a little bit about kind of what it was born out of and what we're excited by, essentially. But yeah, I mean, for us, it feels like, essentially there's an art world, and then there's an innate desire to engage with art that everyone feels. And there's also lots and lots and lots of artists and lots of artwork. Lots of it is in storage. And very many artists don't really don't have much economic support and don't necessarily last very long. Well, some of them don't last very long as a result, and that's, there's a number of really good artists that I feel have been, not supported in the way that they should have. So for us, it was a question of, we used to go to Frieze year after year and be there for the 5 days with the gallery, the Sunday Painter, and we'd do the first couple of days that were VIP sessions, and essentially you're selling all of the work, and that's great. And then you have 2 or 3 days of the fair where you're on your booth, and you get just random people coming up, wanting to talk and engage about the art and asking questions that I guess if you were snooty, you would laugh at. Questions like, are you the artist? And obviously everyone in the fair, they're not the artists, they're the galleries that, we know how the system works. But those people normally, obviously the fairs are there's a customer at both ends. So there's people paying for a booth, and there's a customer paying to come and see the fair at a high ticket price to come and wander around. But really, the galleries are, servicing one end, but then there's this other end where it's like, well, they're kind of working for free and aren't able to engage with this customer who is clearly engaged, who has paid £50 to be adjacent to the art, but there's no way of monetizing that interaction or deepening it. So for us, it was really kind of seeing things over and over again, and also having a passion about wanting to kind of give greater access to people, artwork, and in terms of the artists themselves, being able to support them in a much more consistent way, rather than the kind of quite manic feast or famine that they're often
I think you've identified a point there where if someone's new to even just a gallery, stepping in a gallery off the street or an art fair, they're engaged with it, like you say, but it might be quite easy for them to be scared away.
Yeah, because it's quite terrifying.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you're not au fait with the art world's machinations, you haven't got a chance. And you have to battle for access, you have to understand stuff. And, straight away, if you want, it feels to us, there's this market here, and there's all these people that are hugely catered for, chased after, run around for, and they're saturated. And then there's you can buy some posters, and then there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing in between, and it's mad. And there's also loads of these incredible artists that are making work, and a lot of them having to really they're living a cliche of being impoverished artists, but should they be? I don't think so.
Sure.
So yeah, it feels like letting people in.
Can you tell us about Gertrude? How does the concept work?
Yeah, so essentially we really want to hold people's hand through the process. We want to address this demographic that's currently completely uncatered for, but is interested in, on one hand, I mean, we've got two sets of customers. We've got the paying customer who are going to subscribe to our beautiful artworks. And then we've got the artists, they're also a customer. So we have to cater for both individually. So the artists, we really want to make them have or allow them to have a consistent monthly income. So if you're a subscriber, you can go on the platform, you can learn about artists, learn about works, you can choose an artwork and essentially get it delivered to your door and installed, usually free, the whole service, depending on the value of the work. And you can pay a monthly amount of just £50. And then you can also, that £50 per month stays, 80% of it stays in your account. So that can accumulate over time, so that when there's a time in which you might want to buy an artwork, that is used as a discount against the value of the work you purchase. So you could essentially like try different works for years, you know, really testing things out, really engaging with different artists, and then eventually pull the trigger. The other side of it is how it's working for artists is that they list works between, we select the works, so it's not an open marketplace. It's always, you know, we're looking looking for artists, and we're very kind of particular about what we want and want to make sure the quality is really high.
It's like a curation.
Yeah, sure. And that's, you know, that's our background. We've had a decade in the industry, and actually the gallery can only cater for a tiny percentage of what the amazing stuff you see. So there's like a backlog, which is really great to engage with. But for the artists, we essentially choose between 5 and 10 works. And for each work, they're paid £30 per month. And basically to trigger it, they just need one work to be subscribed to. And then they're paid for all of them. So the artists, once they've been subscribed to, they're then on a stipend of between £150 to £300 per month, every month.
Okay, and then it corresponds to how many people are renting. Okay, and this is for
it doesn't correspond, no, not currently, but it will. It's obviously at this stage, it's about prioritizing getting quality customers from both sides on the platform. So it's growth over profit. Currently.
Okay, and this is for a UK audience at the moment.
Currently, it's a UK audience, yeah.
Okay, so Julian, does this sound similar to what you're doing in the US?
Kind of, yeah. For me, it starts a little differently. So when I wrote my thesis, I was working with museums and with galleries, and found out that, you know, galleries and museums have hundreds, if not thousands, of artworks like hidden in storage. And meanwhile, there are a lot of people like me that are interested in art, that work in design, tech, finance, that, as Will mentioned, you know, have an innate interest in the art world, go to galleries, educate themselves, but really just don't have the time or the knowledge necessary to feel comfortable spending $5,000, $10,000, $13,000 on the spot. And so what we're trying to do with Parlor is really reduce that initial, I think, financial barrier and education barrier, and bring art into people's homes so that they can feel comfortable living with it and then pay it down over time. So 100% of the fees that you pay on a monthly basis go towards owning. We cover delivery and installation 100%. And we also actually partner with Art Money to offer payment plans if that is like an additional barrier and folks want to continue paying off once they've committed to a purchase.
Sure.
It's the ultimate try before you buy.
Exactly. I think I think Will said it very accurately. There's a massive interest in art, right? 250,000 people go to Art Basel alone. A lot of folks engage, but then there's only 10,000 people around in the world that are actually considered active collectors, that are sustaining what we consider this, like, you know, capital A art market. And so there is a lot of art that is, that goes unseen once it's been exhibited once, just because of the dynamics of the art world. And that's really what we're trying to make accessible and to bring into people's homes, because these are amazing artists, amazing artworks that, just because they've only been exhibited once for, 1.5 months at a gallery, now are kind of limited to being shown online, and selling online art is really tough.
Right. It's just removing a huge barrier, isn't it? Those blocks are gone.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's really important in terms of removing a barrier also for our galleries is the insurance part. And we've also seen that with our customers. I think, Will, as you kind of mentioned, artworks above a certain price range can be really intimidating, right? I have a $4,000 or an $8,000 piece on my home. What happens if I spill red wine on it? I think one thing that's been really valuable for our galleries is also covering that piece and being able to actually ensure artwork's in the home of the renter. And that's also what allows our customers to just feel at ease with bringing art into their home.
Okay. I think we're going to talk about barriers and get into that in more detail as well later on. But Paul, would you like to come in here first and introduce us to Art Money?
Yeah, well, so I think the starting point for Art Money is similar to Will and Julian, that, you know, we want to increase access. We want more people engaging with and buying work. And buying is important because looking is great, but buying puts food on the table of artists. And, you know, without artists, there's no art, right? So the commercial side of this is really important for us. So essentially our business helps people buy art. And the way we do that is we, instead of paying up front, you pay over time. So for us, our core model is 10 payments, 10 months, no interest. So if it's a $10,000 work for the collector, they'll still pay $10,000, but they'll pay $1,000 a month over 10 months. And the business model works by asking for a 10% commission from the gallery for the seller for that. And in return, we pay the gallery straight away. So the artist gets paid straight away. So artists love this program because they get paid straight away. So it's a kind of win-win model. Gallery gets paid, artist gets paid, we take the risk on the collector, collector takes the work home on day one, pays over 10 months, no interest. So that's essentially the core model. And we are very clear that we don't want to have our own marketplace. It's a three-way relationship. So the buyer, whether the buyer is buying from a gallery or a platform or even directly from the artist or from an art fair, whatever, we want to support, or we want to help people buy and help artists sell. And the platform or the channel for doing that, you know, we're completely neutral and independent of. So, but anywhere there's a transaction, you know, we're not saying this is the deal. You guys work out the deal. You want to work work out what you want to buy. We don't judge the art. We don't judge the person. We just help facilitate the transaction. So it's
the connection between the two.
Yeah, it's you know, we can call a marriage broker or something like that. You know, but you know, it's facilitating. It's making it easier. I mean, for me, the art world's full of no's and full of reasons to say no. Everywhere you look, there's things are too hard. There's too much friction. It's too slow. It's too much effort. And so we kind of like to think we're helping people get to yes, because as the guys were describing it, people don't go to art fairs because they're not interested. They are interested, but look, you know, it's a big ticket price to make a commitment, and we're just making it easier to say yes. And I mean, in terms of finance, you know, I don't think of us as a finance company. I think of us as an art business who uses fintech as a tool. Right. So the kind of that's behind the scenes. We want, you know, we want to help people buy art and help artists sell art, and that's really kind of what we're about.
I think
sure.
Hit the nail on the head though as well. Like you've got to be easy to do business with, right? You've got to make it easy.
Well, and the irony of the art world is all of these models, like they kind of revolutionary in the art world, but everyone is using these models in every other industry, in every other field of their life. They're not new. And a lot of the founders that I talk to and the guys on this panel, you know, we're really just bringing best practice and established good practice from other industries into the art world. And we're just trying to do it in an art world friendly way, because the art world is one of the slowest kind of old, you know, ironically, compared to the, you know, the art that's being sold, the product that's being sold, which is, you know, innovative, think different, think outside the square, cutting edge. But actually, as an industry, in terms of business practices, it's one of the most conservative industries. So, you know, like for me, and I'm sure it's the same for the other two, you know, people go, oh, you're in the art business or the finance business? And we go, well, we're in the culture change business. That's what we're doing in the art world. And it's, you know, these practices are just completely normal in other industries, and we're just bringing it in an art world way.
Well, it's true, isn't it? When you invest in a car or you invest in a house, or, you know, you'll take a loan or you'll pay it down bit by bit, but we've never done that for artwork before then. Well,
so one example I use, you know, when I talk to gallerists or when I talk to, you know, investors or whatever, you know, the same people are buying, you know, a BMW or a Mercedes. Are they expected to pay cash up front for that? Of course not. That'd be ridiculous. But when they're buying a painting, they are expected to do that. It's just doesn't make any sense. I think
this is a theme that comes up a lot on this webinar about looking to other industries and analysing what we're doing in the art industry, and are we moving fast enough? Are we using tools that already exist? Or Annika always calls it reinventing the wheel when we don't need to.
Yeah, boiling the ocean.
So it's often not about the tech, or it's not about the product. It's, you know, it's about the people and the culture change, and just normalising these practices in an art world friendly sense.
So we've touched on a couple, but if a first-time buyer going either into a gallery or they want to bring art into their home, you know, traditional routes, what challenges might they find?
Who wants to go first? I've talked a lot.
Anyone can jump in.
I think just to continue, and I can just give a quick example, but to continue kind of the theme from just now, with everything or other way around, with a lot of high ticket purchases, this is a very clinical way of looking at it, but with a lot of high ticket purchases, people have experience in what they're into, right? Apartments you can rent, you kind of know before maybe at some point you buy. Drive Now from BMW in Europe is a really good example of like car sharing, giving you an understanding of what it is to drive a car before you maybe purchase something. And it seems like in every market we have some form of leasing or some way of really experiencing what you're into. But then in the art world, you're kind of expected to go to a gallery or to a fair and then make your first purchase. We tell our audience to really start, going onto Instagram, educating yourselves, like trying to understand what they're into. But in the art world, that really doesn't exist unless you really go out of your way to educate yourself. And so I think, price and like not having these, I guess, modern ways of engaging with the things that you're into are a massive barrier to entering this art market.
Mm-hmm. Patricia on the Q&A has made the point that you don't buy a BMW over time without paying interest. So she would like to know more about the free financing. Maybe Paul, that's a question for you.
Yeah, look, I thought I flagged it in earlier, but just to be clear, it's because this is a question we go, oh, that's too good to be true. How does that work? Sure. And so it's important for us to be transparent and important for people to know. And look, we ask for a 10% commission from the gallery or from the seller to make that go round. And so on a $10,000 sale, as I said, the client still pays $10,000 per $1,000 a month. The gallery will end up with $9,000, and but they get that on day one. They get paid, and what happens is that, in terms of the maths of that, so that's how it works: 10% commission, which is, if you know the art world, that'll be pretty standard in the art world. That's not unexpected at all. So that 10% commission pays for it essentially to be interest-free for the buyer. So another way is to say that the gallery is paying for the commission. Mm-hmm. Now, why would they do that? And some galleries go, oh, I don't want to lose 10%. And we go, well, if you don't think you're going to make 10% more sales, you shouldn't do this. But what we find is, we've had platforms that have doubled their price point. So literally doubled it. So that's how one way you make up your 10% as a seller. Because someone, in a way of describing that is, someone walks into an art fair or a gallery with a $5,000 budget in mind, and everyone's got a number that they're comfortable spending on art. It's usually not to do with their wealth. It's just a number that they're comfortable spending on art. And so say someone walks into a gallery or an art fair with, self-imposed budget of $5,000, we all know they fall in love with the $10,000 painting or the large one instead of, but, oh, look, that's double my budget. I'm not going to go there. But guess what? $1,000 a month, yeah, I could do that easily. So this goes to the fact that, one of the secrets in what we do is it's about psychology, not affordability. So even though we talk about increasing access and so on, a very common misconception is everyone's got other things to do with their money. Art is a discretionary purchase. Nobody has to buy art. It's like, you got to feed your kids. You got to, most people think they need a car, rent, but art is a discretionary purchase. And, going back to that thing of people aren't engaging with artists and art world and looking on platforms and going to art fairs and so on because they're not interested. They want to look for reasons to say yes. They want to get to yes. But look, finance, there's a whole lot of reasons, the intimidation factor, the education, finance, finance is not the only reason, but getting them to yes and feeling, so we're taking it from feeling self-indulgent and feeling guilty about spending money on this when they've got renovations and school fees and holidays and stuff coming up as well. Instead of feeling guilty about it, let's feel good about this. Hey, I'm doing this responsibly. I'm managing my passion. I'm this is just allowing me to do it without any sense of guilt. So it's just about managing the process. So, sorry, that was a long answer to where does the commission come from? But the idea is it's a win-win model. This is not, we're not screwing one side to get the other side, rich. It's a win-win model. And look, I think everyone knows that in the industry today, if you walk into a gallery and say, oh, can I pay that over time? They'll say, yeah, pay it off over 6 months or 12 months, and that sometimes happens, but basically, the collector doesn't get to take the work home. The artist doesn't get paid. The gallery doesn't get paid. The gallery's got to store it. So it's kind of a lose-lose workaround because this technology hasn't been available. So we're turning that lose-lose industry workaround into a win-win. And so I'm a believer in win-win business models. And so that's how the percentage works.
I was just going to say that 10% commission, the gallery probably spends that in storage for the painting or the artwork anyway over time. So
Absolutely.
they will sell it and, you know, make the artist happy and they're happy, and not have it sat in storage, then, you know, not
well, for the seller, it's look, there's that, they converted they sell at higher price points, as in the person that says yes to the $10,000 work with a $5,000 budget, because they can pay over time and manage the cash flow. So they sell at higher price points. That's how they get the 10% back. They convert more sales, like in that sales conversation, people are more willing to get to yes and more comfortable about getting to yes. So they convert more sales. So in the end, yes, I mean, it's like spending advertising on Google. Why would you do that? Well, actually, you don't do it unless you get a return from it.
Exactly.
So it's like any other investment.
The artist value goes up. So it is a win-win-win, as you say, right the way across the board.
You know, you make it.
I would say most customers don't even know that they can ask for a payment plan either, especially first-time buyers.
Well, that's right. But if they could, it's still a suboptimal way of doing it, you know. So, and yes, and then you get the whole issue about, like, you know, artists and galleries don't want to have a financial conversation or a payment conversation with the galleries. They want to talk about the art, which is what they're good at and what they should be talking about. And they don't want to be storing the work for months, and they don't want to be ringing the collector every month and going, oh, where's that payment you promised? And, you know, it's just awkward. So, you know, outsource it to an independent third party. So, yeah, there's models around that just work, and we're just tailoring ours for the art industry.
Yeah, I like your point about kind of changing the state of mind that people, they want to shop and they just perhaps need the confidence to do that.
It's like, this is our big secret that I'm just sharing here now. It's all about psychology. It's not about affordability. Like, you know, even I mean, everyone's got a number they're comfortable spending on art. And if you're a first-time buyer, that might be 1,000 or 2,000. And then you start buying a few works, and then creeps up to 5,000. Then it goes to 10,000, and then suddenly it's 20. And, you know, and then some of those people make a journey along being a collector, and they're spending seriously.
You find that journey happens with people that are using art money. They start small.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, not everyone's got to start their art journey somewhere. So, you know, you start as a beginner, as a newbie, you know, you're intimidated by the galleries. I'm still intimidated going into galleries, but it's, you know, you start somewhere, and then you go along the curve, and yes, you generally buy more often and then at higher price points, just because you get comfortable with it. And it's the same with buying wine, or probably staples, and, you know, other areas of life as well. And some of those go on to be major collectors, but you've got to start somewhere. Somewhere, and that's what this, you know, webinar is about. Taking that first step is often the hardest.
Mm-hmm. I imagine Will and Julian have seen something similar in art rentals.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think we've seen, like, we have kind of two businesses. One is B2B, where we're helping you know, larger clients like build corporate collections, or also like rent to own and really start like putting artworks on their wall and create amazing spaces. But I think the thing that we're really excited about is that for individual client business, people are really starting their collecting journey around 10 years earlier. Like, it's so much, people, you know, when they're end 20s, beginning 30s, or even like mid 30s, like early 40s even, buying an artwork can be really intimidating, and it is a discretionary spend. It's not something that's like super necessary, and so finding an easier way to enter that. And I think, to Patricia's point, something that like is 0%. So we don't actually charge additional money. So you rent, and whatever you spend on a monthly basis, if you want to buy the artwork, it just gets deducted. So we try to make it as simple as possible for our clients, so to also not feel like they're getting you know, upcharged anywhere in that process. But I think it's just exciting to see individuals start that journey earlier, and you know, also be able to go into a gallery and ask, cool, can I rent to own this? Like, we launched this request feature for Nada X4Land, which is an event in New York, and folks could literally go around the art fair, take a picture, send it to us, and then we worked with the gallery to get you the artwork that you saw. And I think specifically for fairs, or for galleries in general, but I think fairs in that context, being able to offer a new way for folks to engage and get over that hurdle in an environment where they might feel intimidated has been really exciting for us.
Yeah, I was just going to come in from that. I think that for me, the thing that really excites me, like, I really feel like Gertrude is a platform that holds people's hands through the process of engaging with art and getting to a point of living with it. But I think ultimately there's like a bigger thing at play that goes beyond the kind of business metrics that's, you know, when we think about what culture actually is, it's a representation of ourselves. And currently it's what makes it to the point of representing us is what the market dictates. And when it's dictated by such a narrow band of individuals, then what ends up being a representative for us is also quite narrow. So I think this notion of like facilitating a route in for this kind of this other demographic is really, really important in terms of wider breadth within the kind of backgrounds and demographics that are contributing to this bigger cultural conversation.
That was, sorry, go on, Paul.
I was just going to say, in terms of ways in, so Mary Alice from Own Art scheme, which has been going for 20 years in the UK, and was like one of the forerunners of what we're doing. So shout out to her and them. You know, so we go in the UK, we start at £1,000 and go up to £100,000. Now, Own Art generally is under £1,000 and up to, I think, a couple of £1,000. So even if your budget is, what I find is the psychology is actually the same, whether your budget is £500, £1,000, £5,000, £10,000. It's remarkable, even if someone's spending 30 or 40 or £50,000 on something, the psychology is pretty much the same as someone spending, you know, £1,000. That's, you know, I hadn't expected to find that. But, and so if you are starting out, yeah, there's things like Own Art for even if you're doing £200 or £300 or £500. You know, there are ways of doing things. It's really about, I mean, I think what we're all doing is about trying to normalize this rather than go, ooh, you know, because the art world has this cultural baggage that, oh, wealthy people buy art, therefore you're expected to pay big amounts of money up front, which is ridiculous and doesn't happen in any other industry, but it's the cultural baggage of the art world. So again, back to this culture change thing, we're just normalizing this. This is actually okay. It's fine to pay over time. Everyone, you do that in every other area of your life. Why wouldn't you do that here? It's fine to rent something. Just because the art world's never done it before, it's just normal. And instead of the art world making people feel like idiots for asking these questions or taking these opportunities, it's like, let's just normalize this. And so I think what everybody's doing here is just normalizing that this is fine, this is okay to do it this way. It's a new contemporary way of doing things, and it's a better way, frankly.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's great. You know, just take away that fear, that intimidation, and, you know, it's just opening up to a whole new generation of collectors.
Yeah, I can't think of many other industries where that have that kind of reputation for being unfriendly, let's say. When you want to give someone your money.
I think for me, wine is the closest parallel. And I think there's a lot of parallels with the wine world. Like, you know, I happen to like wine too, but, you know, you can just, with wine, you can go, you can know what you like. I like that. I'm going to drink more of that. Great. Or you can be a complete snob about it, you know, and, or you can just research it to death and be a connoisseur and really understanding and educate, you know, there's those kind of things. And, you know, talking about not putting prices on things, it's sort of like going to a wine shop or a restaurant and being asked to choose a wine without knowing what the price is.
And it does happen.
You know, you're going blind, and the art world kind of tries to put, I feel that the art world tries to, you know, they sort of half-heartedly say, we're trying to encourage everyone to come in, and really we're trying to get, you know, new people and young people and tech people and millennials and new audiences in, but
it can't, though, because
a lot of those audiences want is transparency.
But the industry's involved in manufacturing scarcity.
Well, that's right. But I think increasingly that, I mean, that's the nature of it, because mostly there is a scarcity built in because there's only one-off item. But I think the old school, let's create
way of dealing. Yeah, the Joseph Devine model of art dealing is about, you say psychology, it's completely about that. And it's about it's quite a manipulative thing, but ultimately it's the engine behind why artworks become so kind of prominent within our culture.
Yeah, well, I would say that that's an old model that worked for the people at the very top, the few percent at the very top. And
yeah, but that's the status quo we're still dealing with. I mean, that's who we're still dealing with. The cultures that wash down are set by those at the very top. So of course there's a vested interest in maintaining things as they are.
That's right. There are some people that think that's the best model still, even though I think the facts say that's probably relevant for a few percent of people, you know, but then that has permeated down. But that's a barrier to growth. I mean, that's the old industry. And look, sometimes you have to think differently about things and, do things differently to grow and change. And look, okay, so that works for a small cohort of powerful people, or formerly powerful, or maybe even now the top, few percent of people. But hey, let's grow this industry. Let's bring more people in. Let's support more artists. And that can only be done in a sustainable way from the bottom up.
Yeah. And I would say that mentality is not lost on customers either. Like, we spend a lot of time speaking to our customers, and I think galleries often, I think wrongfully so, have a bad reputation because people don't understand what galleries do in the art market, why there is price and transparency. It's one of the few markets where you can't just go on your phone and inform yourself on kind of, learning more about the artist or historical prices or whatever. And thus there's just a massive distrust, which also like stops people from purchasing with confidence. And I think that's kind of what new models can then kind of ease, because now it's more about getting to know the art market, the gallery, and the artist on your own terms.
Well, and I think
there's one thing that, oh, go on.
No.
There's one thing that Will said earlier about diversifying collectors. I think that's 100% true. I think there's the idea of like art as an investment, which is like very few artworks actually qualify as art as an investment. And like thinking like that, I think, is a very tough space to be in, because you really have to be in the know and know the right people to de-risk that purchase. Like, yes, you can be lucky. But what we found just across the board is that people don't necessarily look to represented by, or like, collected by this museum, or like written about by the New York Times. I think what we're seeing is across the board a really diverse collecting behavior based on aesthetics and personal interests and artist identity and things that people resonate with. And that's kind of where I think, at least, in the same way that you wouldn't listen to music that you don't like, or wouldn't eat food that you're not into, in the same way, we're kind of hoping that that's what, and I think we three, or all five actually, are thinking about people, how people should engage with art, like based on what you like and feel comfortable with. And then I think that's also going to drive a lot more engagement and investment into the art world.
Yeah, I was just going to talk a little bit about how because the funny place that I think we find ourselves in is that, like, thinking about how long it's been with us. So the Blombus Caves in South Africa are 100,000 years old. And that's essentially an installation of beautiful kind of carvings and painting. And so we've had this thing that's been with us for eons, for millennia. And yet here we find ourselves today, where the physical art is there. There's loads of artists there in every city. And yet, for most people, it's seemingly out of grasp. And I just find that is a really surreal situation to be in, when everything else is at our fingertips. And that is to do with the fact that essentially the art industry has also been subsumed by the luxury industry. And that perhaps those things merging together isn't the healthiest thing. And perhaps we need to kind of price them apart, and maybe not wait for permission, not wait to be allowed to do so, but go ahead and bring these innovations and, engage with these markets and pitch the case.
Do you think people that are new to collecting, or people that you see, are they approaching it as art as an investment, or are they? No, it's like Julian was saying.
Totally, and it also leaves way more room. Like that kind of approach makes for very conservative maneuvers, and in turn that informs the kind of work that's produced, which therefore is more conservative. So you've got a bit of a feedback loop there. Whereas if you've got the freedom to swap out pieces, to experiment, to try new things, that does the opposite. That takes art in a different direction. It frees it up.
And also, think about
the art world. Sorry, Stacey, go on.
No, on you go.
I was going to say, I think the art world does have to educate its audience better. I mean, the art world has lived on this exclusivity thing for so long, and that's why it's, you're either in or you're out of the art world, and it's a very excluding kind of environment. And you want to grow it, you want to get more people in, you want to get the new generation of collectors. They want to engage, but there's too many barriers. And partly it is, you need to know what you're talking about, or you'll be completely embarrassed. Or yes, art's an investment. I mean, that I really hate that sort of thesis. And I get asked all the time, well, what's the return on investment of art? And often by finance types, right? And I say, so what you're asking is, how much can I sell it for in a year? Okay, but that's not the return on investment. The return on investment is the joy you're going to get out of looking at that work every day. It's going to mean something to you, the stories you tell, what you share about it, that's the return on investment. So I think, you know, it's kind of incumbent on the art world to look beyond the art world and actually, you know, sell itself a bit. And I think that's what the fashion industry, for example, has done better than the art world. The art world has been so internal and so sort of, you know, clubby and exclusive that it's now the chickens are coming home to roost. But I think, you know, change can happen, and COVID has accelerated that change. I mean, who would have thought you'd see Zwerner posting prices and Gagosian posting prices? I mean, you know, COVID's forced that. So there's a whole lot of things that COVID has accelerated that, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago, we're just, you know, unthought
You
of.
wouldn't have seen coming. Yeah.
That's exactly
And I
what
think-
was gonna say.
So it is possible, is my point.
It certainly brought about a huge change of, you know, OVRs and you know, people being able to chat directly with those people on a, you know, on a chat basis where they're used to communicating in that way, as opposed to having to physically go into a gallery in an intimidating space. And
Like, oh my God, people buy online.
Right.
Who would have thought? Or, you know.
And I think rather than having art hidden away in storage, why, you know, for galleries, it's so much nicer to be able to build community. For artists, it's so much nicer to now have folks, at least in our opinion, to engage with. Like the people that are renting works, they actively post on social media, reach out to the artists. I think it flips the equation on, you need a gallery and walk into it to buy the artwork, and all the artwork is hidden away in storage, to, you know, you can, as a gallery, build a community, create funds to have artists work non-commercially, build an art production fund, or actually pay your artist directly. And we know that around half of rentals end up in purchases. So it is a very strong way to acquire works. And that feels a lot more sustainable than putting artworks from an exhibition, if they don't sell, into storage and then just waiting for them to sell.
Were the galleries quite supportive of your, you know, when you first pitched this to them? What was their initial reaction? I'm just interested to
yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would say that I think COVID has really, pardon me?
Can we guess?
Yeah, please. What do you guys think? No, actually, surprisingly, I think we're seeing that it's, I mean, it's a no-brainer for galleries in that it's a very reliable path to acquisition. It's monthly, you know, galleries that work with Parlor on average have made $11,000. We don't charge galleries to be on our platform. And so it's, you know, quote unquote free money for their artists, for the gallery to support operations, to pay insurance, to pay rent. So it's been, I think, really phenomenal for participating galleries and artists. And I think what we're still battling to a certain extent is, I think there is this old school way of thinking about either you buy an artwork or you don't, right? Like as a collector, you find something, you fall in love with it, and you purchase it. And I think that's where, like, we're still, I think, trying to like change the minds in the old school, like, you know, gallery world. But I will say that our partners have been phenomenal. We're working with a lot of younger galleries that we're onboarding right now. And it's been really exciting. And I think especially in New York with future fairs and, you know, some of the fair partners in Miami, people are thinking about new ways to sell art and to engage the community. And everyone is aware of the gap between the people that visit galleries, that follow galleries on social, that sign up for the newsletters, but that actually buy. And I'll share like one last stat. I think it was in Numero magazine last year, 2 years ago, Mark Limcher mentioned that they have, you know, maybe 1,000 clients. And he was like, I'm exaggerating when I say 1,000, but over 1 million people on social. Why is there that difference? And how can we close that gap? And I think that's what we're trying to do. You know,
sales arm as well, aren't you? You're an extra sales,
pardon me?
an extra salesperson for them, Julian, basically.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, we spend so much time, and you know, you guys are obviously initially were a gallery, but for us, it's a little different because we've hired, you know, our team are essentially folks that love art, that are art historians, that, you know, previously worked at Christie's or have done their art history undergrad, and that are really in love with the work that we have on our platform. And so we spend a lot of time educating our clients with what this artwork actually is that you now have in your home. And that's a really big part of, I think, working with Parlo. Like when you rent the work, that's only the beginning of the journey. The remainder is actually getting updates and content related to the artist to really feel comfortable with what it is that you have in your home and building that personal relationship with the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool.
This is just a question that I was wondering because I have no idea. So is there a connection between people that start collecting art from galleries, and then do they then develop into the kind of people that would donate to museums, for example? Is that the journey that they might take?
Yeah.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that
Okay.
happens. I was wondering whether you were going to say that then would use our services, because we're definitely not looking for. We don't want to take any collectors. Our aim isn't to take from the existing industry and to, our aim is to contribute to it and to bring people from here over to there. But yeah, there is trajectories like that.
Okay.
I mean, originally that's how I mentioned Joseph Devine earlier, but that's how the backbone of the American museums were created. But these were the collections that he basically formulated, and he sold to a nouveau riche in the US who needed to kind of validate their new status as, wealthy and powerful and culturally important. And then those individuals built these collections and then donated them to the people when they died, essentially. So there is something quite beautifully cyclical about that.
Right, because I was also thinking about museums, and they, their donors always tend to be high net worth individuals. So if that pool of people can be diversified, that would be a good thing for museums too. Just we haven't mentioned them much, but slightly different topic, I guess.
I would say hot take no, to be honest. You're right.
It's
if you think
two
about
different sets of people.
Almost, right? There's a lawsuit, but I'll kind of explain why. I think it's a hot take. I think, of course, like in 10, 20 years, that'd be amazing and that'd be lovely. And I think, yes, I have full belief in that, just given from what artworks we see sell on Parlor and what actually is also shown in museums. So I think there's some overlap there. But there's a lawsuit against major museums in the US, I think 3 or 5 years ago, that, and I'm going to butcher the numbers, so don't quote me, but essentially between, let's say, 2010 and 2015, only 5 galleries represented all the artists in solo exhibitions at the Guggenheim. I think something like that. And so I think arguably there's a lot of nepotism within the art world that only few players are able to really engage. And I think especially if we think about and I think museums have done a tremendous job at also getting out of very limiting donor requirements. So historically, when a museum has had the opportunity to receive a larger gift, oftentimes that would also come with certain requirements, like that there needs to be a wing, or you need to take over my full collection. And I think that has been very restrictive for museums. And I just think the number of people that are in that space are so limited that I just think it's two different people. And I think the art world is ready for a broader audience of collectors.
Interesting. I'm like, I don't have an art background, so I've been learning kind of since I came to Articheck, but it's been a very steep learning curve and it's been very interesting.
I'm just sat here feeling quite gutted that when I was in New York working with some very cool emerging artists, that I didn't think of, going to Paul and saying, hey, I'm shipping some artwork for this unknown artist. Can I borrow some money? Can I buy an artwork direct from the studio? And then, 7 years later, I would have had those artworks.
Oh, you should have done it.
Yeah, I should have, would have, could have. That's the thing. This opens you up to do it now. All my friends that are artists or selling, artworks, then, you can buy them. You can invest in their future, kind of help them.
Yeah.
We just shared on Instagram, little plug for our Instagram. There was a quote which surprised me, but it was a real quote from a real client. And they said, oh, we've bought around 200 artworks. And my only regret is not discovering art money. So it's not just for, like some galleries, some people think, oh, this is only for beginners or this is only for people that can't afford it. But it's not. It's because, again, it goes back to the psychology thing. It's just easier to say yes if you don't have to worry about the cash flow thing and you just feel better about doing it. People want to do it. And all of these models are just enabling people to do what they want to do, and just in a smart, responsible, 21st century tech-enabled way.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So Will and Julian, I'm just thinking, can artists just approach you directly and say, can you rent our artwork on your platform, or does it have to come through a certain?
I mean, they can, but that doesn't guarantee them getting on. I mean, we're vetting the work, and usually we've got long lists that we're kind of people are engaging with, and we've got essentially an artist funnel, people at different stages. But we do solicit applications essentially, but it's going to go through a kind of relatively strict process.
Okay, that's good to know.
I think for us, we work because we are local in New York. We work primarily with galleries because it also just simplifies pickup, delivery, and installation. I think that's one main value prop that we really have for our galleries, for artists, is making sure that the artwork is fully insured in the delivery and handling process. And that's why we've opted to first only work with galleries to just simplify that process and have, and we obviously work with ArtEvolve to also have like a very, just optimal condition reporting process and make sure that that everything is fully recorded. And so that's why we've opted to work with galleries initially.
One of the questions.
But we actually, pardon me?
That's actually one of the questions that's just come through from Patricia. I mean, Emma, do you want to do the questions, or do you want to put it to Julian?
So Patricia's question is, let's see, practical matter, for the art to be insured, are there certain conditions clients need to maintain at their locations, security, environment, etc.? What loss claim ratios have you experienced? You did already mention insurance a little bit, Julian.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just to answer the last question first, because it's the most pressing one, and we hear it a lot also when we talk to galleries, is we've had no damages too far. There's like nothing has happened. We pick up the artwork, we condition report it when we get in. We work with the client to make sure that the artwork does not work in direct sunlight. We're also there in person with our art handlers. So we, whatever questions need to be answered, we're there to answer those questions. And then if the client does not opt to purchase the artwork, we come back, we condition report the artwork again, and all parties receive a copy of the ArtEvolve condition report. So it's, nothing has happened to date. We really do everything to make sure that the process is fully insured. But in case something would happen, we are 100% insured, and loss in value or restoration. Yeah,
that's basically the same process that we're undergoing, again, working with ArtEvolve. But it's that major thing, again, especially for like someone new to this realm, where this might be the most expensive thing they have in their home. It's so important to give that reassurance and to make sure they feel, properly looked after and not anxious about it.
Yeah, I think if someone was new as well and they, at the end of it, they got a condition report that was, I don't know, maybe done on paper or various things stapled together.
Checklist.
I think they need, we have like a standardized system, and it can be sent on a closed, secure system as well, which is what you would expect in other industries. So I'll just give a little shout out to our own condition reporting there, because we love it.
Well, I think it's really exciting as well, just because I've been talking with Julian since before you launched, and it was just really exciting for us to see you kind of building up to that stage of launching and post-launch, and how you guys are growing and and it's just really, it's nice for us to still be kind of like by your side throughout your growth period and your processes, and supporting your clients and your standardizing and practices. So yeah, it's a nice warm fuzzy feeling for us to be there with you guys. So keep up.
Really appreciate it.
And Paul, obviously we love just tapping into your brain as well for our AIS meetings and bits and pieces. So we love holding your hand and warm fuzzy feelings too. We did have one more question, I think, Emma, on there. Before we kind of wrap up, have you got any more bits and pieces?
Yeah, well, there is kind of a comment really from Eve Black. Thank you, Eve. This is a hugely refreshing idea. Yes, we thought so too. Why not enter the same world as every other commercial activity? Excellent opportunity for people who may be intimidated by galleries and their owners to purchase art. So yes, obviously we agree. We can give it a minute, see if anyone else has got any other questions. But yeah, I think we're just about wrapping up now. If anyone else has any other points they want to make, or
can we ask questions?
Can I do something slightly outrageous and just quickly type Eve Black a small code so that she can get 2 months off?
Go for it.
Okay, that's great.
Love that.
Discount code.
I'm gonna throw one in there too, but I guess most folks are gonna be from London. Wait, where's the chat?
But this will be emailed out, this link, to all of our ArtEvolve signups, and it will also go onto our website and be posted. So if you do want to pop in any voucher codes, let Emma know.
Yep, we'll put them in there, and links to everybody's websites and anything useful.
Paul, I'm going to hit you up for some art loans.
Yeah, we don't call them loans, but yeah, you
But,
pay the time. I'm in this crusade. We're not a bank. Sorry.
And the way the mindset works of it being, a loan, isn't it?
Well, you go to a bank for a loan and it's scary and it's slow and it's awkward. That's not what our process is about.
You're going to say no.
Well, 95% odd of something of our clients end up getting a yes, and then they grow from there. And it's, it's not about us. It's about buying the work. Like we're an enabler for people to buy the work. So it's like we don't want to get in the way. We want to facilitate it. So anyway, I just have this.
Does your CFO still call you when you get a no? Because I remember when you guys launched and you got a no, you still got a call from the team to figure out how we can still make it work, which I really appreciate it. Is that still a thing?
Yeah. Look, what I say is we look for reasons to say yes. So like a bank looks, no, that's no good. That didn't match. That's no good. They look for reasons to say
Very
no.
inflexible. Mm-hmm.
We look for reasons to say yes. And we will never. Nobody gets at this stage. Nobody gets an automatic no. They get a referred, and we look at it and we see if there's a reason we can say yes, or if someone says, "Oh, look, can I have 10,000 because I'm, I want to buy this 10,000 work." And if we think they're only good for 5 because they're going to get in trouble, we'll say, well, look, maybe based on what we know, maybe you should look at 5. We're happy to do 5 because we don't want to get you into trouble, So we're very non-bank like. We're about how can we help people, how can we help someone buy this art and support this artist? So, yeah.
We do have another question. Sorry, go on, Julian.
No, if there's no questions, I was going to ask a question to you and Emma, but if there is a question, we should.
This question, I was going to say, might take us way over the time limit. I know because it is, what are the major challenges in your business model? So maybe bullet points as to
culture change.
Challenges.
I would say just culture
change your mindset.
It's making it normal, and then there's people don't like change. People aren't good at change generally.
Mm-hmm.
The art world specifically, the industry is very slow to change. What I would say is that the buyers, collectors, buyers, new people that want to buy art, they get it. They're really into these models, they experience it. But it's the industry itself that is slow to change. So to be honest, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone, that's been the biggest challenge with the business model is like the pace of change in this industry. That, people might say, a nuance on that is people might, oh, that's amazing, I love that idea. And they probably say that about yours too. But then actually, well, how do you offer that in your business? How do you talk about it? How do you offer it? How do you include it into your sales programs? How do you actively make use of this as a sales tool on the industry side? Because we know the clients love it, the clients want it. So how do you, it's change. Change is hard for people, and especially in an old school industry. So that's far and away the biggest business model challenge, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it is for Will. I mean, we have very strong stakeholders, right? Like our galleries are we need to make sure that our galleries are very happy with the things that we do. And so the art world is, I think, as Paul just mentioned, not slow moving, I think, organism. But I think we're also we're dedicated to our galleries. And so I think there's just a lot of, between working with our clients in our galleries, things that we need to just make sure that are 100% and really caters to every single gallery. And every gallery is very different, right? And so every gallery has different expectations.
Well, look, whenever there's change, there's an innovation curve, right? So there's innovators, there's early adopters, there's late adopters, and there's laggards. And so in any significant change, you find people at different points on the curve. So we find that galleries that have adopted this and use it as a sales tool are just completely going off with it. And then there's others that, oh, what do I do with this? How do I do that? Oh, that's a bit, So and then a year later, the ones that didn't know what to do with it are off and running. And so it's just a time takes care of a lot of things. But there's a traditional innovation curve that's for every new product, innovation. It's not unique to the art world in that sense.
Okay. I think that about wraps us up for the webinar. Julian, do you want to get in with your question before we finish?
I was going to say, what do you guys think? Emma, you as being new to the art world, and Stacey as being someone who's been in the art world for a while, what is the one most exciting change that you've seen in the last year or come out of COVID that, I think excited is a big word, but what are you interested in or impressed by or excited by?
For me, so I've always worked in marketing, and then when the pandemic hit, I was working with a lot of travel companies, and it completely kind of ground to a halt, really. So to then come and be in a company that the pandemic, yes, it was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity to really thrive. And it wasn't the case that Articheck kind of got smaller or anything like that. That was really impressive for me to see.
Tough question. I think for the past 18 months of this pandemic, it's been God, I mean, what has it been? It's been a roller coaster for us at Articheck. Had an exciting development phase with the release of Virtual Courier. That was really exciting, but it was really like heartwarming to see kind of the relationships really blossom with our clients. You know, they were really tough times, but we were having very genuine conversations where, you know, lots of idea bouncing. You know, key culture, Julie's bicycle, you know, lots of things that, you know, back and forth to the GCC, you know, we got very actively involved with that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know really what's exciting coming through the art world. I tell you what really, really excited me, which I never thought I would say, I've always kind of got my shipper hat on. You know, towards the end of my shipping days and coming into Articheck, I got really disillusioned with art fairs, really fed up with them.
Right.
Thought they were massively overkill. Yeah, and were just a massive drain on everybody's resources and energy and time, to be honest. And then the pandemic struck, and you know what? I went to Freeze in October, and I felt so refreshed, being surrounded by the buzz of an art fair. And as a shipper, I never, ever, ever thought I would stand in an art fair and be like, I'm really excited to be here. And I was, and it was lovely to see people, you know, talking. And the funny thing was, we talk about this intimidating environment on here that we've mentioned, and actually Freeze did not feel intimidating being there.
100%.
Everybody was so genuinely happy to see people and artworks and absorb that environment. So I think for me, that's been the biggest realization of my own kind of experience of what's happening right now. Is I think everybody's just feeling the love and the enjoyment a little bit more than what we were kind of experiencing burnout, weren't we? We were just overloaded, you know.
I mean, if you take it back to the topic of making art accessible and new ways to enjoy and collect, you know, I'd say if you are a newcomer, then some of the ways may not be that transparent or obvious, but dig deeper, look on Instagram, talk to people, ask questions, because there are ways to make it enjoyable, and the social experience of the art world is part of that, and meeting the artists is part of that. There's new models that enable purchasing. You know, there's a lot of change that's happening, and you know, unfortunately, it might take a little bit more work than, but it's worth the effort. It's rewarding. It's an amazing world, and you know, the barriers are coming down, not as slowly as we'd all like, but you know, they are coming down, and it's worth the effort to explore a bit. So, and you know, it doesn't have to be intimidating either in price or model or whatever. So, you know, and
it genuinely felt like the galleries are super happy to chat to you about their artists, and they had time, and because time was always something it felt like nobody ever really had. But I didn't feel like that this time. So.
Freeze London was a vibe. It was so cool to be there, especially because Freeze New York was like, I live in my parents are German, I'm German, right? So my mom's birthday was right after, so I just did the trip, and it was so cool to see Freeze London be so vibrant. I think in New York it was still kind of a little, right, you know, first fair post COVID, still very conservative, and so it was really cool to see the energy, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I thought it was very like inviting, I think is the right word.
Yeah, I think so.
I think this post-pandemic period is a good opportunity for us to start as we mean to go on, and be welcoming and make things more accessible, and use the technologies that we've got at hand to help us.
Definitely.
Okay, well, thank you so much for all three of our guests for joining us, and for Stacey for saving my bacon. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.